It's socially acceptable to be anti-black against black men on this app, especially within the black community. Because if you think about conversations that impacts the black community, let's say finances, conversations about 50-50. I saw a black woman on this app, big following, which said black American men are 50-50 warriors. Now, she said this in order to put down black American men, and make black American men feel bad for not having the finances to be a sole provider. Right? So this is where the anti-blackness, where white supremacy come in. Because what does white supremacists, what do? They throw away the actual reality and rely off of their feelings and delusion. The reason why black men don't have the same amount of wealth as their white counterparts, slavery, apartheid, federal government denying rights, like things that are documented, they throw that out the window. Conversations about black men attending college. These people would downplay systemic racism. Like some of the black women on this app will downplay systemic racism in order to say how much better they are than a black man. When you're talking about conversation of black men attending college, this woman, she told me, well, yes, we're aware that systemic racism exists, but we were able to get out of it. So it's basically black men are in this position because they're just not working hard enough. What does that sound like? And you pull themselves up by the bootstraps. And that talking point about college, right there, I knew it was simply they hate black men. And not necessarily just simply hating black men, it's being at the bottom of the social hierarchy. So when you have an opportunity to be better than somebody, you're going to look for it, right? When you have insecurities, when you don't have self-worth, right? So these conversations about college, black women are disproportionately impacted by student debt. You can find studies called Jim Crow debt, but they would rather ignore that and put down black men for not being able or not attending college like them. They hate black men. And these are the people who will tell you black men need to be accountable for the actions of other black men. These people, their perception, I would never be accountable for the perception of how black men are viewed. When we live in a society that is very racist, anti-black, so when these people are telling black men you need to be held accountable, but when they have conversations about black men, they can't provide any level of nuance, it's pointless to try to change off of the perception of races. And those races can be black women as well. Like anybody, right? Anti-blackness impacts everybody. And if you're unable to acknowledge that fact, it's never going to change. I'm not on Twitter, but I do remember bullet bags, that whole thing. And it's like, these people are giving dissertations on systemic racism, overcoming oppression, giving grace for others. And the minute they deal with some people, some reactionary people, ignorant people, they resort to racism, right? These are the ones who are supposed to be teaching, leading, the real leaders, like not the weaklings. And the minute something is said that they don't like, the references to mention how you really have a shorter life expectancy than I do. You're actually more likely to be murdered than I am. That was their rebuttal. I remember one of my mutuals. What was that brick lady situation? In which he said, okay, I'm going to value my life. I'll call the police. If people are jumping, I'll step in. But I'm not going to throw away my life because, I value my life. And women, black women too, were calling him coward. They were calling him bullet bags, just that type of rhetoric, simply for valuing his life, right? So I need the patriarch, then I hate the patriarch, right? They were angry that he was not abiding by a patriarchal framework that believes that men have to save women at the expense of their own lives, and the response was, you are a bullet bag, meaning basically you're going to die and get killed anyway, so at least do it on my behalf. These people are honestly disgusting, and because they don't allow for self-reflection or honest dialogue. They just keep regurgitating the same talking points, and it's always based in self-hate. I didn't say men have it the hardest. And this is why you can have these conversations in good faith, because a lot of you honestly lack the intellectual capacity to understand this without making it essentially an impression of Olympics. But if you're going to give metrics of who's having the hardest, you have to provide some kind of metric. So the reality for black men is that we are going to experience more direct state-sanctioned violence, because that has always been our realities as black men. Look at post-slavery. It was black men primarily who were rebuilding the South through private prisons that were owned by grand wizards. If you're looking at lynchings, it's not to say black women did not suffer aspects of being lynched, but primarily these people were black men. That's the reality. If you were to look at, let's say, J. Edgar Hoover, look at COINTELPRO, the rise to, what was the message? To prevent the rise of a black messiah. Now, if you were to read this book, Elaine Brown's A Black Woman's Taste of Power, when she's detailing her experiences as a Black Panther, when the state is engaging in violence against the Panthers, one of their tactics was essentially sometimes attacking the men. Now, this isn't to say that black women weren't contributing towards the Panthers, or in many aspects doing a lot more than some of the other men. But being a man, there's a certain presence that you have, a certain ability that you can organize, and just also the expectations of, let's say, violence that men are going to be more capable of engaging in than women in certain situations compared to like the women there. That's just reality, because also too, they're patriarchal, right? These are a white patriarchal frameworks, so they're going to hate the patriarch of any other demographic, because that's how they view it. Even the aspect of them saying to prevent the rise of a black messiah, and it's a very let's say Christian framework. And what happened within their Christian framework Bible was that the Hebrews, Pharaoh killing the Hebrew babies, the boys, in order to prevent like their savior from being there. Christianity, right? Jesus. So like these are already like patriarchal frameworks. Like y'all trying to do like an impression of Olympics. So that's not saying that black women don't experience levels of misogyny, but it's not like a copy paste, all men are the same. Like you have to just ignore history to make that position, because if you study black history, our ethnicity, we already essentially had 50-50, which would be deemed very progressive because of racism, meaning black women and black men had to work. Black men didn't receive those same patriarchal privileges. You had so many aspects of white women engaging in violence against black men. White women were nearly half the percentage of slave owners. Right, one of the worst versions of slavery that existed in the world, white women were nearly half the percentage of slave owners. So there's like the framework of just inherently making women be like victims, and then men being, let's say, just these tyrants. It's based off of, I guess, whatever you want it to be. Can't be like off of history. Like you're just going off of what happened, what is. So that's why, I mean, if you want to actually have these conversations in good faith, let's have these conversations in good faith. But if you're trying to, let's say, downplay racism, I'm not about to downplay black men's, like, my experience of racism, my demographics experiences racism in order to make somebody feel good. I guess, what did Bell Hooks say? She had, I think she mentioned it was either a feminist theory or some other book that she had, but essentially of women, in many cases, associating victimhood with their identity, because it upholds a very patriarchal framework of man being the oppressor, woman being the, let's say, victim. And it's like reinforcing those like framework, and that's not always obviously the reality, because as I mentioned, nearly half the percentage of slave owners were white women, meaning white women were engaging in a variety of violence against black men, black women, black children. That's the reality, and you can see that later even through, let's say, the Reconstruction period and afterwards. Many lynchings, right? Hell, Emmett Till, like those type of situations, those are ones that became a little more famous. But it was pretty common of women, white women, engaging in violence. Hell, even going further, the military-industrial complex, most of the CEOs were white women, meaning the stuff that you're seeing, in which you're seeing like people are seeing now, it's a little more visible of bombings, Muslims being wiped out. You're seeing these drones, and understand there were some white women that made some good profit off of that, right? So this is all documented. But when you have these conversations and you're not, let's say, engaging in a reductionist understanding of how the world works, you understand that there's a lot more nuance than you are willing to give it. So the obsession y'all have with being anti-50-50 highlights the insecurities that y'all have. Because let's break this down. Black people are a marginalized group, have historically been a marginalized group, has been limitations on people's ability to work for a variety of reasons. There's been, again, state-sanctioned violence, just general racism in the free market that has limited black people's ability to earn wealth, to build a wealth. And the times that we have been able to, it gets destroyed. So understanding that we've always had to work together because racism, because of lack of opportunities. This is general wealth building. Being against 50-50 as a marginalized group is stupid. There's no kind of rationale. It's honestly, it's conversations about building wealth. You have so many studies now, not just focus on black people, because y'all want to make like people working together, both men and women working as it's a black specific issue. Most groups have to work together. Most groups work together, and you can find a variety of studies that showcase 2 incomes better than 1 if you're trying to build wealth, right? If you're trying to get out. And here's the reality. Black women are poor. Let's do this again. Black women are poor. Not everybody's a 100K, 6K, six-figure earner. It's not backed by anything. There's more black men who are 6-figure earners than there are black women. All this information is verifiable. The average salary, income, black men make more than black women. Black women have more college debt, Jim Crow debt. So, these are things that are crippling, which will make it impossible to really get ahead. So imagine encouraging a demographic that is marginalized, a demographic that the only group that is primarily dating them are their own counterparts, and saying that you're going to be against it. And then, again, being poor and acting like you are doing them a favor by working together, which would be beneficial for black women. Y'all are poor. But, y'all want to act like this is the insecurities that y'all push on this app that is anti-intellectual. It doesn't require much to say 2 incomes better than 1. You're able to build up more wealth. You're able to keep more money in your pocket because all your expenses aren't going to your housing. Right? This is common sense, but y'all... Okay, so you actually don't know what you're talking about, and it's because you engage in bigotry. So black people have always had to work together, meaning both black men and black women, because we live under a white supremacist nation. And how white supremacy impacts you, let's say if you understand the concept of capitalism, the free market, you can be willing to work, have the labor, but if they don't choose you, they're not going to select you. And that was reality. So limitations on how black men could work caused for black women to engage in more labors working in the household, because again, both people had to work. Now also, think this in further context, both black men and black women used to be slaves. So do you think black women were just not working on the fields or anything like that? Black women engaged in physical labor. That's why you had some criticism with the earlier feminist movements that saw work as, let's say, liberating, because black women have always been working, engaging in labor. They didn't find labor liberating. You don't know what you're talking about. This is just a basic feminist theory, bell hooks, right? So, and again, if you actually knew Black history, you would know what I'm talking about. But you're probably just going to see me as being some kind of misogynist because it's easy to process it that way. You're an anti-intellectual. You are a pseudo-intellectual and likely self-hating. So, sister, I say this. 1, educate yourself. And 2, go to therapy.
And like, I'm over it. Like, black men just can't get my time no more.
I don't know the race or ethnicity of this creator, but I want you to know, in order to be racist at this point, it requires low intelligence and hatred. And to still be spewing these generalizations of black men, you are simply a bigot. And anybody that is supporting and encouraging you, they are also bigots. Y'all push white supremacy and believe simply being a woman that absolves you. It does not. There aren't good people. No man, no black man of quality would choose somebody like you. Who thinks like this? This is very simplistic thinking. It's honestly dumb. It's honestly stupid. And the fact that people hype you up and you see all of these likes, it comes from people who also have low self-esteem. And people who have low self-esteem, what they try to do, they try to pick on people. They try to generalize groups. Because the easiest way to come up in this white supremacist society is targeting the most marginalized. Generalizing black men, you're honestly pathetic. Well, here's the thing. When you have low self-esteem, it is easy to be manipulated by white supremacy. That Latina woman, all she is doing is manipulating white supremacy. And she's aware that black women have low self-esteem and is going to blow up because black women on this app believe simply hating black men, that somehow that makes them good people. That somehow that makes them revolutionary. That somehow that is complex thinking. They have the same thought process as any white supremacist, any bigot. It's simplistic. It doesn't require much work to deconstruct their whole thought process. So imagine being a Latina woman talking about how bad black men are. What are the femicide rates in Latin America? What's the culture in Latin America? Right? So when you actually apply things consistently, then it's you see when people struggle, it's because of white supremacy. They're stupid. They're bigots. And if you apply a little bit of common sense, a little bit of critical thinking, it falls apart. They need a patriarchy in order for their values, for their opinions to actually matter. That's the hard truth they refuse to accept. They need a patriarchy. Why? Because if we remove patriarchy, right, this social construct, right, because things are it just is. Right, so let's say if black men had suffered the same rates of violence as black women, it would be deemed great progress for our community. Black women aren't incarcerated like how black men have been. Black women have not faced the state-sanctioned violence to the degree of black men, and they're aware of it. Imagine they'll make jokes about how black men struggle with education, school to prison pipeline, incarceration, and still want to hold on to a belief that they are the most marginalized, because in their head they have associated being marginalized as being good. And simply that is not the case. It simply means you are without power. They're not good people. Right? And these aren't generalizations. It's generalizations for these white supremacists. If they're going to behave like a white supremacist, if they're going to speak like a white supremacist, then they're going to receive the title like a proper white supremacist would. Call them what they are. They are white supremacists. What's in between their legs does not change that. They rely on the same type of reasoning and logic that many of these white feminists were relying on. I'm a woman. I can't be racist. It's all men. Whole time, their demographic nearly owned half the percentage of slaves, half the percentage of slave owners, right? Supporting white supremacists, attacking men, using their patriarchal violence against black men. So don't allow these people to apply actual common sense and make them stand on it. Watch how it falls apart. I don't think you're a black man, because if you're trying to justify why black men are hated, and ignoring the fact of white supremacy, that highlights you are simply just ignorant over, honestly, everything. So just in U.S. history, we live in an apartheid country most of our existence. There's a reason. The reason why we have protected classes is because we generally engage in bigotry towards a variety of marginalized groups. We actually marginalize them in terms of nationwide. Right? That's why if you studied U.S. history, you would know J. Edgar Hoover, leader of the director of the FBI, had a plan to prevent the rise of a black messiah, somebody who's going to unify a variety of different groups, right? And these groups are other races, anti-war protesters, generally will be deemed good people, and that was deemed an enemy of the state, right? The focus was so bad, the world at that time period is facing nuclear holocaust, due not to the actions of black men, but white ones. And the focus was still on black men, right? It was some black men from Oakland. That was deemed the greatest threat to national security. Some black men from Oakland. Hell, I mean, let's look into Birth of a Nation. The film, it was focused on black men. And one of the first films showed in the White House. And it gave birth, right? Like it inspired the resurgence of the Klan. And the concerns were, again, it was black men are going to be taking our white women away. They're going to be engaging in assault, right? Engaging in predator activities, right? Based off of projections, because white men generally did this throughout slavery, right? Engaging in torture, right? Mass rapes throughout slavery. So this was a projection on how they operated, the assumption what black men were going to do. And even then, that had some more sexual frustration, because that was from their Mandingo sexual fetish that was developed due to white interests. That white interest being white men. And you can see this book, like Iceberg Slim. I think he mentions it in his autobiography, Day in My Life, in which you'll have white people, white couples, go to other parts of like Harlem, in the ghetto, in the projects where black people are going to be at, black men, and they will want to watch a black man have sex with their wives, and they want the blackest men, right? And that culture developed into series, even within the pornography, right? You have a company called Black. The focus, black men having sex with a variety of different women, right? White women, Hispanic women, Asian women. Again, they're not going to create this organization, this company that wouldn't have existed if it was solely due to black men wanting this. It came from them wanting to watch black men perform. Right? So, I mean, looking to sports, I mean, you still had high levels of bigotry. In other aspects, you had obviously racism prevent black men from getting other spaces, but they allowed it for other sports. So if you actually study U.S. history, you would see that white supremacy doesn't have to really be based in logic, just whatever they want it to be. And that has been the basis of white supremacy. But again, I don't think you're a black man. Okay, so I saw this video from this black woman who said Black men are the worst partners to date, the least romantic. It's so difficult finding a good black man because like 90% of us are just terrible. And I asked her on what basis would she essentially say that a good black man would even want her, right? Because we make the assumption that black women are perfect, but we never ask the black men, the good black men, what do you want? Now, the reason why we don't ask this question is because y'all don't want an actual relationship. You want a slave. Yes, that's all you want. You want men to shut up and do whatever you want and not to even have to see them as human beings. That's why y'all can keep having this conversation. And it's that insanity, because anybody who knows, who's been in a healthy relationship, you're going to know if you want a relationship to work, it requires for both sides to be heard. In some sense. Hearing does not mean that you have to accept it as being truth, but if you are trying to reach some level of understanding, you have to listen to both sides. They don't listen to both sides because the person that they want can tell them the traits that they have that are negative. They don't want any levels of criticism. They don't want any pushback. Right? So these conversations about where are the good black men, there's a reason why they're on this app and complaining. There's a reason why this group is on this app complaining. The demographic that makes it their personality, hating their male counterpart. And then at the same time, crying how they can't bond or find any good men. It's almost as if they condition themselves to see the worst into their own. And all they have to show for it is being the best broke capitalists and working themselves to death and being angry that other people are finding love. Right? Like that's how these things go. You don't ask the men. And when the men verbalize their expectations, right? Because marriages require both sides, their expectations. It's, well, this person is a bigot. This person offer their own standards. As if the positioning is you are owed a partner. No one is owed any relationship. You're not owed anybody. So these positioning of you don't have to do whatever, then you just stay lonely. Like that's the issue. You don't want to take any levels of accountability. And then are shocked how people even within your own class, right, you put quotations, because even these educated black men, right, that's what they say, like it's the black men who don't have any education, they're not fit for a relationship. But the educated ones, it's just because they're not good men. And it's like it's every group, regardless of class. Like you even had a movement within our own demographic, which is like passport bros. And they're not even talking about sexual tourism. They're talking about looking for wives. And it's clearly just the men's fault. Like y'all are surprised that Nicki Minaj, when she spoke at the UN, like that whole, like this right wing approach, this whole 92%, it's I can't do anything. She's a woman. Like y'all just hate women. And then it's like, ma'am, it's genocide we're discussing. And you're focusing on, well, you're just attacking a woman. It didn't happen overnight. It's comments like this is why I'd say black men on this app, when black women are putting down black men, understand that there are some things that black women have to deconstruct on their own. Demons that they are fighting. That there is nothing that you can do that can change the perception, because the creator liked this comment. Now let's read it. I think we white men enable black women to emerge fully into their feminine energy. Do y'all provide better pay for these black women? Right? Because this whole feminine energy, where's the money at? Where are the money for these sisters? When y'all brought these women in chains, was that placing them into their feminine energy? When black women have to straighten their hair, like place chemicals in their hair, that results in like cancers, like health issues towards black women due to white men believing that this natural kinky hair is not professional. Is that what you mean by putting black women to their feminine energy? Right? So when black women died giving birth to primarily these white physicians, right? These white institutions, right? These white physicians, is that putting black women in their feminine energy? Being more likely to die in childbirth than their white counterparts? Right? When y'all sentence black women harsher than their white counterparts, is that keeping black women into their feminine energy? I'm curious.